Welcome to the Betancur podcast, where we explore leadership, mindset, and the systems that shape who we're becoming. I'm your host, AJ Betancur. Today we have a very, very special guest. We're actually in his home. That's why it's so beautiful here. Jeff Moore. Jeff, thank you so much for having us in your home and for coming on the podcast. Man, this is going to be very special today.
I'm glad to have you.
Absolutely. So we've talked a little bit about how you got started, but can you share with us how long ago and how you got started with all of this?
Sure. Started raising cattle back in the 80s, and then had a situation with my wife's family to where her family had some bad cancer scenarios that happened in her family. Unfortunately lost her father to cancer, her mother's had cancer, her brother had a precancerous situation he had to take care of, and so we decided we better get kind of proactive on the health of her as well as our 4 children. And so I started checking into grass-fed beef and learning the attributes of it and how it differs than grain-fed beef, and for the health benefits. And so I took the cattle that we were raising at that point in time. And
so you already had cattle?
It was a black baldy type of a cow. It was a Brangus base, and I just tried to take some of my cattle just off grass and process them. And it was not a very good eating experience. And so then I started working toward the genetic side of things because I knew that it was a product, after researching it, that I really, really wanted to feed my family. And so we searched for cattle that would work for our purpose. And we ended up bringing cattle in from New Zealand and Australia, the genetics from them in the form of embryos, and we put those in the cattle that we had, and that's how we got the start with our Devon cattle. And then we've continued to work on the genetic lines ever since. We produced our first grass-fed beef back in 2001, probably. Okay. So
now, was that 40 years ago? Was that a fairly new thing where people were like discovering like grass-fed, grass-finished, or has it been something that's been going on for as long as you probably?
As far as in this country, it wasn't anything that was taught in your land grant universities. As a matter of fact, when I first started trying to do it, I contacted some of the local extension agents from University of Georgia and University of Florida, and they actually just kind of laughed at me back in the 90s when I said I wanted to do it, and they said, "Oh, that's a fad, it's going to die out, you can't do it, it doesn't work," all that kind of stuff. And so I pretty much was on my own. Then they finally tuned into it, probably about 2010. Then they started, because it got popular. And it's because of the health benefits are so different in grass-finished and grass-fed beef than grain-fed beef.
So what exactly is the difference? And again, I know you've done a lot of research, and this is why I would love to have you on the podcast, because we're all about health. We're all about making sure that we are able to perform at the very top. And to think, even what you just shared with your family, that you were able to help and really almost kind of break that curse of like all these things going on in people's bodies and your family with cancer and everything, and you were able to help out a lot with that. So what really is the difference between grass-fed, grass-finished, and just a regular meat people can find?
The difference is in a grain-fed product, we are what we eat, right? Cows are no different. So in a grain-fed beef product, you're going to have, the cattle are going to be taken to generally a feed yard. There's been plenty of publicity on feed yards and how toxic they are. And so you created an environment for disease, number one. But number two, when you think about what they're being fed a GMO, Roundup ready corn product, and you're stacking all of them together in a feed yard. And then what's going to happen there? If you've got all those animals and all their excrement, and they're living in that pen for all that fattening time, you're going to get some disease. Well, the other thing that you get is acidosis. When you put all of that starch in a cow's stomach, God didn't design those animals to eat that, okay? And when you do that, you're going to get acidosis. and that acidosis is what causes all the problems. We see in the world of food these days recalls.
Yeah.
The recalls come from the diseases that are caused in that acidosis, that acid stomach, and it splashes up on the meat during processing, then gets into the hamburger, and then all of a sudden you got an outbreak. That virtually doesn't happen in grass-fed, grass-finished, because there's not that acidosis.
Right.
So, number one, you've got the health of the animal. A lot of people don't realize it, but the largest user of baking soda is the feed industry.
Baking soda?
They have to feed those cattle copious amounts of baking soda to try to
because of the
take care of that acid in the stomach.
That's amazing, yeah, okay.
And then when you got all that disease happening, well, they're going to be getting other chemicals that they're going to have to give them, because you can't take all those cattle and put them in one small spot and not expect there to be transmission of diseases.
So is that also where like regenerative farming comes in, where it's like you're able to kind of move the cows from different pastures and take care of the animals that way?
Well, that's part of it. So the type of farming that we do here is regenerative. It is also called sometimes amp grazing, mob grazing, different kinds of grazing. So let's take, like, out in the woods here, we have a lot of deer. A deer wakes up in the morning and it goes and eats what it needs, what it wants. It searches out in the forest. It decides, what do I want to eat today? And it's going to pick what it needs, and it knows what it needs. Well, if we take cattle and we allow them to wake up in the morning and get a fresh bite of food, and it's not where they pooped yesterday, they don't have to live in that, then you're trying to basically recreate what the animals would do in the wild. And then it's my job as the farmer, as the grazer, to provide for them a forage salad bar, if you will, to where they can get all kinds of different things to eat. I've got to supply fresh water. I've got to supply, shade. So I've got to take care of those needs that the deer would naturally go out and find a shady spot to lay. It's a clean bit of water to drink. But a lot of times in cattle raising, they're stuck in one pasture and they don't have that opportunity there. I'm kind of stuck right here.
Right.
And if I'm living in a field of where the farmer has grown one kind of grass, that means I'm going to get that one thing to eat. And then I'm also only going to get the mineral profile of that one thing. Because see, out there in the forest, when plants grow, the depth of their taproot determines all the minerals that are up in that leaf. So a lot of people don't realize it, but if you have a piece of grass that, say, is 6 inches long, in the top of that grass is going to be the carbohydrates. In the bottom down there is going to be protein. So when we're trying to raise cattle, we want a lot more carbohydrates than we don't want them on the Atkins diet. We don't want them just eating protein.
Yeah, right.
But when you drive down the highway and you see a pasture and the cows are there that are nipping off grass that is so short that is not the way you want to raise cattle. Cattle are designed, because of the way their teeth structure is, they're designed to take their tongue and wrap it around forage and rip it off. Eat it, go down into the stomach, and then they're going to regurgitate that. They have a 4-chambered stomach.
Yep.
And they are going to sit there and chew their cud. And that's the way that God designed these cattle to be raised. Now, there's something that's very interesting that we've done tests with. When you take a cow and you feed it corn, it takes about 10 days, and that hot corn is going to make the stomach as smooth as the palm of your hand. But the cattle that we raise, since they've never had any grain, they've never had any corn, they'll have a stomach that is very rough, that'll have all these little villi type of things in them, and it helps them to absorb nutrients out of that grass. You can take that cow, if you fed it corn, and then you can put it back on all grass, and those things will never grow back.
Really?
They'll never grow back.
So like it just basically
That's why
damages...
somebody says, I'm going to go buy some cows at the sale barn, and I'm going to put them on all grass, and I'm going to raise them up, and I'm going to sell grass-fed beef.
Because they've been raised on that, so it's just already...
Once they've had corn,
it's a wrap.
they're never going to do as well as an animal that's that has been raised like we do, to where they've never seen a bite of corn, never seen a bite of grain.
That's amazing. And you also told me last time that you supplement, like for example, in the winter. Now I've had some people tell me that I personally know that raise cattle and that feed them corn. They say, oh yeah, it's grass fed for half of the year. But when it's cold, because it's winter, we can't do X, Y, and Z, so we have to feed them corn. But that's not really true, right?
They've ruined them. As far as now, let me state this: everybody should raise cattle however they want. Okay, everybody needs to do it however they want to do it. But if you're trying to produce the best and the most nutrition, you can't do it that way, because you've ruined that stomach. You've changed it, you've altered it because of all that heat of that corn. It's so hot inside them. That's why they get that acidosis.
Right.
And you can't do that. So what we do here is we plant for the winter. The thing that when you take a look at our environment, every part of the country and every state has an environment that's good for something. Okay. Here we have high rainfall. We grow. What we can do here is we can grow a lot of grass. Yeah.
Go South Georgia, man.
Now you go out west. Their grass is more nutritious than here.
Okay.
But I've got some buddies that raise grass-fed beef out west, and they stock at 1 cow per 100 acres because they don't grow a lot of grass. Their rainfall 6-7 inches a year.
Per 100 acre?
Lord. They can't grow as many. So here we grow a grass, but it's washy. It's got a lot of moisture to it. But then also our climate is temperate enough that we can plant things in the winter. So in the winter, we have a mixture of oats, peas, all kinds of brackises. Whenever we run our planters here, we're typically planting 6 to 8 to sometimes 10 seeds all at the same time. So we always plant stuff for the pollinators because we have bees here, as well as we love the butterflies and all those kinds of things and all the wildlife that's out there.
Right.
And so we are trying to create in our pastures a salad bar out there. We want the animals to be able to pick what they need, what they want each and every day. So when I first started this, and this farm, when we took it over, it was a worn-out cotton farm. I mean, there was, it had been cotton to death, is what I call it. And so we just started working on the soil. And generally, when I recommend to people that want to start this kind of a thing, is how do we get started? Start with the soil. You've got to start with the soil, but your base first, and you've got to get the life in the soil built up. That's
the foundation of a farm,
Yep. And then once you get that soil put together, and you quit hurting the soil, God's made this environment out here in nature just so perfect. And but what we do as humans is we screw it up. All right. And so when you start using heavy dose fertilizer on your soil out there, the first thing you do is you kill all the life in the top part of that soil. It is so hot that you just kill everything. They can't live in that environment. Your earthworms can't live. Your dung beetles can't live. Nothing can live out there. Now, you grow a lot of forage that will keep a cow alive, and you'll get a calf you can take to the sale barn. But if you're tilling the soil and you're putting that hot fertilizer on there, you're doing a lot of damage to your soil. The regenerative type of farming that we're talking about is I want to work with nature, and I want to say, I want to use products on my soil that are going to feed that life, not hurt it. The great thing about the soil is God made it so it would come back. You put 250 units of nitrogen on that thing so that you get a hay crop. Well, you've killed the life in the top part of it, but if you leave it alone a while, it'll come back. It'll reproduce itself.
Yeah, and the cows produce the manure, the fertilizer, and everything.
That is phenomenal fertilizer.
I mean, it's a whole circle of life.
It's a wonderful circle of life.
And it's something that I think a lot of people have to come back to, have to realize, like, hey, there's there used to be ways of doing things that we've kind of lost, and then now trying to get back into it, it's just so much better, so much better. So on that same topic, so it all seems like a dream, man. It seems like it's the perfect beef. It seems like it's gonna absolutely fix your health. It seems like it could fix diseases. I think maybe on one then of maybe some people that at least don't have as much to maybe afford it, it seems kind of expensive. Now, is that true? Like, can it get to a point like where it's like maybe a little too expensive to like actually afford like the really good meat?
Yeah, I think, when you take a look at this is an interesting, conversation, because what is good health worth?
Yeah.
Pay me now, pay me later kind of a deal. So, when somebody comes and they buy a cow from us and we get it processed to put in their freezer, they're paying the same amount for the hamburger as they are the filet mignon. It's all one cost. You're paying per pound, and you get to decide how you're going to cut it up. It's a custom cut product. So, the families that buy animals from us, they have a freezer, and they know that they can always go to the freezer and take out a package of, meat that's really good for the family.
Yeah.
And when you start looking at eating grass-fed beef and realizing it's really a health food, to break this down in the protein model, probably the best protein you can put in your body is going to be wild-caught, cold-water salmon.
It's the best thing.
Okay, that's the best thing. How easy is that to come by? Not come by, and how expensive is it? Extremely.
Yeah.
What's number two? Number two is grass-fed beef.
Yeah.
True grass-fed beef. You're going to have the highest amount of omega-3 in those two products. So grass-fed beef is a whole lot better for you than eating chicken. It's better for you than eating farm-raised fish. It's a lot better than eating farm-raised salmon. So, what's that product worth? I don't think it's that expensive, personally. And it's just, there's a lot of meat scientists that will tell you that, if people will eat this kind of beef, since we don't allow any Roundup or any of those kinds of things on our farm, the health benefits are just astronomical. And I've heard guys talk about it and say, hey, if we could get people to eat true grass-fed, grass-finished beef and dairy products from that kind of an operation, that we would cut cancer incidence in this country by 80%.
That's insane.
But you just got to get people to do it.
Right.
You got to get people to raise it. You got to get people to understand it.
Yeah. So is that part of it, like where people are maybe just ignorant to the fact like that's actually a true thing?
Yeah. People don't understand the difference, and that they think, well, it's just beef, isn't it? Well, no, it's not just beef. Here's a perfect example of why it's different. Grass-fed beef has a shelf life, unfrozen, of about 90 days.
90?
90 days.
In the fridge? Like just right in the fridge?
Whereas grain-fed beef, what are you going to do? Maybe 2 weeks, maybe?
Not even, man.
Not even.
Not the ones that I've bought.
So we have a number of our people that will take, since our meat is vacuum packed packages from the butcher, they will take that meat, as long as the vacuum packaging is still strong, they'll take that meat and they'll put it in the back of the refrigerator, and they'll take a steak and eat it 6 weeks from now.
It's still nice.
So it is just what you're doing is you're wet aging that meat. Just like they do in real fancy restaurants where they wet age, they'll take that whole saddle cut of that loin and they'll either dry age it or wet age it. And so you're doing that same thing with your own meat. You just stick it in the fridge. We take hamburger here all the time, because we have such a big family. We'll put 20 pounds of hamburger in the back of the refrigerator.
Yeah.
And we'll take it out, some of it out 2 weeks from now and cook it, and you don't notice any difference. It's delicious. So there's a big difference between grain-fed. The reason the doctors tell you, you probably only want to eat, red meat just occasionally, is because of the omega-6. Remember, omega-3 is putting out the fire. Omega-6 is helping keep the fire going.
Right.
So that's where it's a difference.
So that makes sense. Now, do you think like a lot of these professionals, do you think they actually know the difference between grass-fed, grass-finished meat, or is it more so like they're putting beef in like this one category and be like, hey, just don't eat it?
I think that they're just putting beef in one category. There's a lot of people that don't understand the differences. And there's also a difference in grass-fed beef. I will tell you this. There's a friend of mine that was asked to judge the big steak contest they have out at the Denver National Stock Show. And he said, Jeff, he said the best steak there was a grass-fed steak, but we could not say that there.
You couldn't
He
say
said the
it?
worst steak there was a grass-fed steak. The difference is because somebody can you can have a farmer that says, we're raising grass-fed beef. And he can take animals and just keep them all on grass, but if he doesn't have the right genetics, he doesn't have the right grass, and he's not patient, it's not going to be a good eating
So it's
experience.
more, it's a little bit more than just throw them in the field and have them eat grass the whole year.
There's a bit of an art form to it.
Right.
So you've got to put in the sacrifice and the dedication, like you and I were talking about, earlier. It's sacrifice. Somebody has to sacrifice to put that really great piece of meat in your freezer and on your plate.
Yeah.
And so I know some guys that do grass-fed beef. And when it gets into wintertime, they go, okay, well, let's kill some because we're running out of grass. Well, if that animal's not fat, you're not going to have a good eating experience. And it's not where the health is. The reality is just like in our human bodies, there's a lot of things that are stored in the fat. With grass-fed beef, you want to eat that fat. That fat is really good for you. So you want to eat all that fat.
So a lot of people are misled about that, especially with women, where it's like, they don't want to gain as much fat, so they want to stay away from all the fatty parts. They want to stay away from that nice little fat cap that you have on the steak because they think it's going to make them fatter.
No, that's not the fat that makes you fat.
That's not true.
The carbohydrates are what make you fat. That's not making you fat. That's actually making you healthy. So you want to eat that fat, and the whole thing is when we have an animal processed, we tell people, get all the fat you can. You want all the fat you can get.
As much as you can get.
All the fat you can get.
So it seems like specifically a lot of Americans nowadays have maybe been misled a little bit when it comes to like their health, and when it comes to, we talked a little bit about like fasting, and how the many benefits of fasting. We talked about, of course, eating truly grass-fed, grass-finished beef, and how that could cure diseases, how they could just absolutely turn somebody's life around. And that's something that people need to be aware of, and something people need to consider. And I love what you shared earlier, where it's like, well, how much do people's health really matter to them? Because I'm sure if somebody knows, hey, this is going to change my life, then they'll maybe save a little money, or maybe they'll stop spending on this and maybe save up to get some grass-fed, grass-finished beef. Right. So even in the whole people being like carnivore, like strictly carnivore.
Sure.
You talked about the lion
diet.
Lion diet. But that's also really important to know. Like, people are wanting to go on a carnivore. Like, there's a difference between you eating just the regular store-bought meat and the grass-fed, grass-finished beef. That's something that you can eat for the rest of your life. Absolutely. And work on. Because again, it's starting to seem like a lot more people, a lot more influencers are coming around that, hey, carnivore diet, carnivore this, carnivore that. They don't really talk about that side of things where, hey, you need the grass-fed, grass-finished beef that you can eat for the whole life and you'll be okay. But the store-bought stuff might not be super healthy for you.
It's not as healthy as the grass-fed, grass-finished for sure.
Yeah.
There's no question.
Absolutely.
And so the other part is when you take a look at like our animals here, our animals get mineral water every day. They get apple cider vinegar in another water tank. We put bentonite clay out for them. So, it's a different, there's a different way of raising cattle.
Y'all have that little thing that they could scratch themselves onto and all that?
Oh, they do that on trees.
They do
and
on the trees,
else.
yeah. That's what you got the trees for.
When we're raising cattle the way we raise them, we don't use wormer. We don't use any of the chemicals. There's nothing on the grass. We make our own fertilizer out of compost tea and fish oil. And so,
you don't need to.
The whole system just works.
I love it, man. I love it. So the last part, if you could leave the listeners with the best piece of advice you have when it comes to changing their health, what do you think that could be?
Get rid of seed oils, get rid of sugar, eat good healthy proteins, good vegetables, clean. You know, eat clean, eat clean.
And that'll change your life.
That's it. It definitely will change your life. It'll make you sleep better.
Yeah.
You know, the whole 9 yards. You know, I talked to my heart doctor and told him that, you know, he ought to eat this way. And he came back to me and said, you know what? I'm sleeping better. I feel better.
Look at that.
And so, you know, that's
educating the doctors, huh?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, Jeff, again, thank you so much for speaking about this topic, man. I loved it. And for everybody who's listening, please, if you've gotten any value, please like, comment, subscribe. We're definitely going to have a lot more talks like this. Appreciate y'all. Jeff, thank you, man.
My pleasure.
All righty.